said to her, look, isn't it a shame? You walk into a supermarket and there's all these provenance stories about the products. This chicken is made here, or this fruit is made at this farm. But you walk into a consumer goods place, a massive category like homewares, worth over 7 billion in the UK a year, and yet there's hardly any story about how things are made, where things are made.
It's something we really press for, that building a career on cross-functional working, but also just having that curiosity to go and understand what's happening in other people's departments, other people's worlds.
We're living, we're here, we're going to die. So what is it that we're going to do in that brief moment of window on this beautiful planet? And I think, well, there's two things going on in this world that need addressing. It's how people are getting on with each other or not, and it's about the future of sustainability.
Massive variation in conversations that I have
Yeah.
with people facing into different challenges. Even when you're talking to someone who's really under pressure or facing into a big challenge within their business, just by virtue of them doing what they love and doing something with such a purpose, you kind of get energy, and I think you help to sort of bring each other along. So I don't know if you found the same by talking to more entrepreneurs and talking to more business owners. Brian, thank you so much for sparing us some time, and also for hosting us at your home. That's really kind of you.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, very good.
No, so thank you ever so much. I gather we're talking on a busy week for ReBorn.
Yes, it is a busy week. We're 1 year into our launch.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we're celebrating not just the 1 year, but the 12 tonnes of waste saved so far, and 200 tonnes of carbon emissions. And as of tomorrow, we'll be launching our second range, our bathroom range, into store. So yeah, super exciting times.
Fantastic. Well, best of luck as the week unfolds, and thank you just for sparing us a bit of time ahead of that. So we've obviously known each other, I worked out this morning, 12 or 13 years. We were together at Johnson & Johnson.
Yep.
You in marketing, me on the sales side.
Yes.
But I'd love us to share with everyone your journey since then, what's happened, and then maybe how ReBorn came to be.
Yeah, so I've done a few different marketing roles now. I did a graduate marketing program back at Barclays, actually, funny enough, a few years ago now. And then I was a little bit frustrated that consumer wasn't quite at the heart of that where I was, and a great program to be on, a kind of graduate program, and a nice way to start a career. But then moved in '99, long time ago, to J&J, and did everything from kind of assistant brand manager through to marketing director for Northern Europe. So that was a lovely kind of experience across multiple different brands and different responsibilities, both regional and local. But since then, because I left in 2012, worked in a couple of different more corporate roles. So McCormick, herbs and spices. So from baby oil to basil and Schwartz spices, which I loved as well. Again, a regional role as well as a local UK marketing director role there. And then Joseph, marketing director there. And in the last 6 years, I've launched a brand called Eco Home that makes recycling bins. And then, in the last year or two, ReBorn Home. So I guess done both big corporate and now much more kind of SME world.
Absolutely. So talk to us maybe about the last 24 months and that journey that you've been on, both personally and with ReBorn.
So, that was... I think a lot of people with sustainability have like an aha moment, or maybe even D&I or other kind of almost pivotal moments related to planet and people. For me, it was, I recently read Donut Economics, Kate Rayworth book, phenomenal book. Recommend it to anyone listening in terms of just a different way of looking at the world that puts people and planet together with profit as what we're all about, really, which talks to us more as human beings than it does just normal economic theory. Anyway, I recently read that, and I was with John Lewis Buyer that I knew well from previous brands that I'd sold to her, and said to her, look, isn't it a shame? You walk into a supermarket and there's all these provenance stories about the products, this chicken is made here, or this fruit is made at this farm, but you walk into a consumer goods place, a massive category like homewares, worth over 7 billion in the UK a year, and yet there's hardly any story about how things are made, where things are made. And actually when you open the hood, you can see that actually the story's not brilliant, because it's made in the Far East mostly from virgin materials, mostly co-molded, so it ends up in landfill. So we're taking the stuff out of the ground, we're making stuff, and then we're chucking it away. And she said, yeah, it is an issue, why don't you make it happen? So that led to the journey that was ReBorn.
Fantastic. No, great. Thank you for sharing that with us. And in terms of your career you work very much in marketing,
Yeah.
graduated through marketing. You work very closely with the salespeople, but I suppose today
Yeah.
you're in both domains and some other domains as well, being an entrepreneur and running a smaller business.
Yeah, that's right. I think I see my career as having started in marketing, but now much more commercially round, much more sales. Actually, I'm always, as I guess, as an entrepreneur, you're always selling, right? You're never not selling. So yeah, exactly,
absolutely. And one of the things that Sellex really champions is commercial confidence.
Yeah.
What would you say your sources of confidence are when it comes to dealing with customers and anticipating some of those challenges that maybe John Lewis throw at you?
It's the combination of people. Like, business is ultimately people, a bit of a cliche, but it's what I'm looking for always is collaboration, always seeing the best of people, always looking for those synergies together with commercials. Okay, that's great, then what's the gap, what's the opportunity, so it's that synergy between those two things. It's trying to build partnerships but have a common vision together with, okay, that's the framework, now let's crunch the numbers.
Yeah. And without naming names, where have you found it a challenge maybe to drive that agenda and that collaboration? Have you had challenges with ReBorn?
Huge challenges. First of all, the challenges were, it didn't exist. It was just an idea. So I was lacking a lot of capability. At that point, I didn't really know what an LCA was, a life cycle assessment. I didn't know, how to collect waste, turn it into beautiful new products. So I had to identify those gaps and then fill them through partnerships. So through Biffa and Brunel University, those two in particular, together with an Innovate UK grant that helped kind of build the prototypes, those kind of filled the gaps of capability and price. And then beyond that, in terms of kind of, if you like, the commercial obstacles or consumer obstacles, it's to do with the fact that it's a very competitive marketplace, the fact that consumers getting that messaging right for sustainability is tricky, because it's the kind of thing that people don't necessarily think about at point of purchase. And so getting that, there's a combination of hard opposition of, like there is in barriers to market, and as well as consumer, like how do you get trial, how do you get people interested in something that can be a little bit, sustainability can be a bit heavy and a bit dry and a bit depressing. So how do you convey joy and optimism and persuade people at that moment?
Yeah. And I gather ReBorn wasn't the original name, so maybe talk to us about the journey to arriving at the brand name.
The very early days, the project, we called it Kintsugi. Kintsugi is the Japanese art of making something beautiful out of broken things, so it philosophically fits with what we were doing. So it was a beautiful internal project name, because it expressed everything about us, but it didn't work as a consumer message. It's too abstract, really, or too theoretical. So I partnered with a fantastic team. One of the nice things about starting a business when you're in your kind of 40s stroke 50s now, is that you can kind of identify the people that you work with over your career and then almost build the dream team. A bit like you've done with Sellex, and it's that capability included branding. So I know a lot about branding and I spent my life in it, but I'm not really a branding expert as such, coming up with brand names and doing that aesthetic part of the brand. So Family and Friends, a small agency in that's the name of them in Richmond, came up with that. We did an exercise together and came up with the name ReBorn that encapsulates turning waste into beautiful products.
Fantastic, thank you. And in terms of taking on the role of wearing all of those hats, whether it's the general management, the finance, the marketing, the sales, what's been the steepest learning curve for you in that time frame?
Well, personally, I wasn't a salesperson. To your point earlier, I was trained in marketing, but I wasn't trained in sales. So negotiation and selling, I've got a newfound respect for, in terms of the skill set required and balancing relationship with commerciality. I think, advancing both really. I think. Not taking things too personally as well. I think which is hard when it's your own business, because you kind of live and breathe it. You're never off. So you have to learn to accept criticism, and work out and filter it and work out which bits are valuable and which bits you've got to ignore and just plow on anyway. So I think there's a combination of, if you like, the technical skills of sales together with some of the more personal, philosophical aspects that are so important.
Yeah. And I think there's so much of an art to how you filter out that feedback and work out what to go with versus maybe what to park and put to one side, because everyone has an opinion, and actually where you're starting something new and launching something very different, there are no real data points from which to draw reference. So it takes quite a lot of confidence, I think, to really keep pushing on with the agenda that you set out. And I know personally I've had some self-doubt around that, and I'm sure you have over that journey.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in that example, it's so important to have a bit of a North Star. What is it that you're really and communicate that a lot. This podcast could be an example, and when you're talking to when you're talking in the pub to friends and family, it comes up, what do you do, and being able to articulate that in a way that you feel that is in your own words, it's your own voice, I think is the key to so many things in life. It's key to selling because people are interested in stories, and it's key to your own sanity and, if you like, your decision making for prioritizing your day and your time, your valuable time. So for me, I articulate, we turn waste into useful products. We have a vision of a world where anything thrown away can be turned into something useful, and that becomes a filter for, right, am I moving towards that, or is it a distraction? Is it something else?
You did something fantastic with me on Teams maybe 6 months ago, where you just reached behind your laptop monitor and said, we turned this and brought brought a product around from the other side. It really tickled me, because it was just nice the way you did it. Now, you can't necessarily take that to the pub to show your friends, but on technology that was really, really good. I enjoyed it when we talked about that. And in terms of your personal journey around sustainability, the family, the way that you operate, how has what you've learned from things like donut economics, and you've learned along the last 8 or 10 years, how's that changed the way you view things on sustainability?
I think what the likes of donut economics and Ellen MacArthur's work, and actually culturally for me, when I grew up with, my mum came from a very poor family and kind of grew up in the war, and what she taught me was very much about how the make do and mend, that kind of sustainability from a very different angle, to do with precious resources and the
almost necessity.
Necessity, exactly. So that's the kind of culture that I was brought up on. So that idea of circularity kind of was pushing it an open door, and then suddenly became a framework to understand, well, it's if you think about existential, we're on this world for like a nanosecond, right? We're living, we're here, we're going to die. So what is it that we're going to do in that brief moment of window on this beautiful planet? And I think, well, there's two things going on in this world that need addressing. It's how people are getting on with each other or not. Just look at the news and it's just horrific what's going on, right? So it's about people getting on, and it's about the future of sustainability. These are the two macro issues of our age. So I think it's one thing to be involved in business to make money, okay, fine, but it's another to think, wow, maybe if we're in this life for just what we have, one life, why don't we try and have a bit of a mark on these two things? And that's what I think hopefully most of us are about anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really good. And you mentioned obviously a new range.
Yeah.
The new range is launching. Maybe tell us a bit about that, and then I've got a question about maybe where it's going even longer term beyond that, in terms of how big can this get?
Yeah. I wanted to tell you a story about how we came up with the range, because
brilliant.
This, I don't know if you can see it, but this was our prototype. This is our very first product. And it's literally melted down old Aptamil bottles and other things. When we came up with this, it was still called Kintsugi at that point, and we were putting it in consumers' hands. A lot of what I do is develop theories qualitatively and then try and benchmark quantitatively, the marriage of the two. And this concept of melted down old products and put in consumers' hands was all well and good, and consumers said, yeah, that's a great idea, really interested in that. And then I said, would you buy it? And they said, no, I wouldn't buy it. Okay, that's interesting. So you like the idea, but you're not going to buy it. Yeah. Why is that? Well, because or it doesn't match anything in my home. You tell me it's Aptamil bottles, so now I'm kind of picturing that. I think it looks a bit grubby or a bit dirty. Have you cleaned it? I need things to look good as well as, you know, have a sustainability angle. So we ended up with a range that was more, you know, conservative in its colorways and things like these hangers. You know, it's all made from waste, but you can see that we're very bold with the brand story. You know, you walk into a John Lewis or a Next or a Dunelm and you'll see this really sing from the shelf, virtual shelf or physical shelf. But actually, the colours of the product are very, you know, soft, pastel, etc. So that's how we got to that element of kitchenware. And then from there, we've gone on to, as of tomorrow, launch our bathroom range. So we've been having a lot of fun with it. This week in terms of the press release, you know, the world's most ecological toilet brush, lots of dodgy dad puns, and soap dispensers and that kind of thing. So that will be shipping to John Lewis tomorrow and be on shelf from next week. Yeah.
And clearly refillables in store. There's been a few challenges around those refillable fixtures, but I think they'll potentially come back again. But certainly the pouches and the packs that some of the big global businesses are now peddling very hard, they clearly will play into the usage opportunity.
Exactly. So one of our products is a soap dispenser that you can put any refillable soap into. So 100%.
That's great. And so fast forward 10 years, where's it all heading?
Yeah, I mean there's two ways it can head. One is, of course, a linear model where we develop the range, build a traditional model, I should say, in terms of extending the range. The second is to think of ourselves as more cause-led than we are as a brand. So, you know, to have an impact, we can't. Yeah, we've used 12 tons worth of waste. That's lovely. Yes, we saved 200 tons of carbon. That's lovely. But actually, the macro issue is, you know, trillions of tons. You know, from a global perspective. So, I do a work. Yesterday I was speaking at an event with the government and academics, and all about the circular economy, and that I think having a legacy that sees ReBorn as just effectively as just a tool for other brands, other retailers, etc., to do circularity is potentially an even bigger idea. So those are the kind of two ways. Still developing that work, but predominantly through collaborations and partnerships.
It's almost as a catalyst for really kicking the circular economy and get things really motoring.
Exactly. I have no idea if there would be a monetizing model of that, but for the time being, it's about influencing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of thing.
And where have you found great allyship, great kinship with charitable organisations, the government, other companies? Where have you really found yourself singing from the same hymn sheet as a group of people?
Well, what I've found is that the academic world has incredible knowledge in circularity and sustainability, but often doesn't apply it, often doesn't have the skill set to apply it. So, you go to academic events and you can have the most intelligent people on the planet, but they can't articulate, or so they've not been trained in how to communicate. And so actually marrying academic skill set with business acumen and application of those opportunities and ideas has been brilliant. So I love working with Brunel on it, because they are much smarter than me on so many ways, and yet they often can't. They love working with ReBorn because suddenly they're seeing it applied.
Hugely complementary skill sets.
Exactly. So that's where I think it works. It works well.
No, fantastic. I've taken you forward 10 years.
Yeah.
If I took you back 10 years, what do you wish you knew 10 years ago that would have been really useful to have known that you know now on your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's. We were talking about a bit earlier about the relationship between sales and marketing, and I think that I wish I'd done sales earlier in my career. I think that communicating as sales is in many ways is such an important skill set in life that I wish I'd done it sooner. So I think embracing cross-functional, and the other thing, there's a Steve Jobs thing. I don't know if you've seen his kind of speech to Stanford address. Have you seen it?
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you know it. So when he talked a little bit about genius comes from obviously bringing different parts of life together, and he talks about studying calligraphy and how that was inspiration for many of the things on the Apple Mac, and it actually enabled a differentiator versus IBM, all the serifs and scripts and so on. So I think specifically embracing sales earlier in my career, and secondly is having different parts of your life that you don't necessarily know how they're going to connect, but they will eventually.
Yeah, having that appetite to learn, appetite to understand other people's perspectives in a function. It's really interesting. I've met with yourself and one other person in the last couple of weeks for whom I had a huge amount of respect, because they were a marketing manager, marketing director, but somebody with a huge appetite to understand about what was going on in other functions. And it's something we really, really press for, that building a career on cross-functional working, but also just having that curiosity to go and understand what's happening in other people's departments, other people's worlds. And I think the way that we've been working from home and the way we've been working hybrid over the last 5 years, some of that understanding has kind of broken down. So I think it's great when you move into a role where you're working, as we both are, really cross-functionally and covering all of the bases, that we can talk about it, but how do we help people to understand that and maybe encourage more of that within some of, particularly our client organisations.
I love that word curiosity you use there, because it's such a key part of life. I think if you're in a role where you can be curious and you can learn, then you're probably in a good role. If you're not curious, you don't care, and you're not learning, then you're probably not in the right role. Time
to make a change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of your own personal development journey, clearly Sellex is all about giving people that commercial confidence and driving your own personal development. Yeah. What are the things you're keen to learn more about in the coming 2 or 3 years?
One of my experiences, I didn't mention it earlier, was I lived in Tanzania for a while. I worked in an NGO project, and what I learned from that experience was the different attitude of people in Tanzania towards time. So I don't know what it is now, but the average life expectancy was kind of 48, 49. It was kind of 50% of the population was kind of under 19. It was like an hourglass population. You had this huge structural and health and social issues, HIV, malaria, etc. And yet they were happy. They were happy people, like, at the risk of being flippant, perhaps, but they were able to embrace today, now. Like, how lucky are we? And I think we forget, we're surrounded by so much bleak news in the world. We're almost trained, I don't know if it's a little bit of a British thing, perhaps, to be slightly pessimistic and not be joyful, and not just to appreciate and live in the moment. But that, in terms of my own development needs, it's going to sound maybe a little bit hippie-ish, but it's about learning joy, about learning to reflect on the now, about appreciating this day and making the most of this moment. And I'm not good at it. I just know that I'd like to be.
It's because you're ambitious. Yeah.
Exactly. And exactly, you've got to balance that with being ambitious, because obviously by definition being ambitious is challenging the status quo and not being happy with the now, right? So there's a massive tension there between the two things that I'm saying. But I think in order to be happy, you have to be happy in your own skin. You have to think how lucky you are. So it's about being grateful. It's about being joyful to the people around you. And that's a need, because otherwise you can find yourself overwhelmed by the news or by life.
I like that. I think that ability to find the joy in things and be in the moment, I think is really important lesson to kind of keep in mind. I don't know if you found the same, but certainly because of the massive variation in conversations that I have with people facing into different challenges, even when you're talking to someone who's really under pressure or facing into a big challenge within their business, just by virtue of them doing what they love and doing something with such a purpose, you kind of get energy, and I think you help to sort of bring each other along. So I don't know if you found the same by talking to more entrepreneurs and talking to more business owners. That sort of helps you to do some of what you described, I think.
Definitely being busy for a cause that you believe in is transformational, rather than doing something where you've kind of forgotten why you're doing it. So yeah, that buys a huge amount of time. You can be more productive when you're busy, and then by being just productive, getting stuff done, it can be satisfying. So yeah, there are those things. I'm not very good at networking with other entrepreneurs, perhaps as much as I should be, because there's a lot to learn in that kind of way. I just have to be so careful with my time. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I think, and that is will be on the ongoing challenge all the time. You're on an aggressive growth journey, won't it? Of working on the business versus in the business, and clearly launching something that's going to sell brilliantly over the Christmas period is a massive priority. I'm confident it will, and I will go and take those pictures for you in John Lewis in Leeds. So one of the questions I've been kind of itching to ask you, Brian, is around those people who've been really in your corner on the ReBorn journey. So advisors, supporters. You may not want to name names, you may do, but give me a sense of those people that have really helped you from a understanding, how to overcome challenges, been your real kind of motivational mentors. Talk to me about that.
So I'm lucky enough that I did have a very good coach for a little while, Rashid Angularu, who's almost like a spiritual guide. He's so deep and so much about you finding. He calls himself the soul trader. He's he's a bit like a Maxi Jazz. I don't know if you know him from other guy. Sadly, passed away from Faithless.
Yes, I do know. Yes,
he just walks in the room and you get this kind of incredible presence and so on. So he was somebody that inspired me from a personal perspective to kind of look into myself and to find whatever answers were in the world rather than pointing out. I've been lucky enough to have some very good bosses over the years. Fergal McGarry at J&J, Tom McManus at J&J. Some people that were both intellectually strong and yet also empowering. And often, I think J&J had quite a lot of those people that were both personable and yet super smart.
Yeah, absolutely, I'd agree.
So that and I learned a little bit about how to be a good line manager from those guys, about really trying to have frameworks and have clear overall directions, but then encourage people to learn. And then last thing I'd say is a lot of what, particularly going from big business to small business, is about, as we touched on briefly earlier, it's about building those virtual teams around you. I think every hour that you spend, the people that you're with are subconsciously influencing you, your mental health, your intellectual capability. And I think standing back and spending a little bit of time saying, okay, who is it that is a positive influence on my life, right? And even if and then looking for opportunities to spend more time with them in whatever way. It could be going for a beer, it could be going for a coffee, it could be doing a project together, it could be anything, but you'll know it, in your soul, the people in your life, both personally and professional, that
give you energy,
give you intellectual stimulation, and they are worth their weight in gold, and double down on those relationships. Yes, others will come and go, that's fine. You can't pick and choose everyone in your life, right? Because of work, people are first foisted upon you, but the people that add value, double down on those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my perspective is, don't be afraid if you get a sense that someone is maybe sucking out the energy. Don't be afraid to find ways to distance yourself, and to your point, then double down your time that you have available on those great influences. So exactly. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
From a customer development and marketing perspective,
yeah,
I'd love to understand a couple of examples where you've just seen the customer development function, whether it be category, shopper, or the sales team, if you like, working brilliantly with marketing, and any kind of advice that you could give on the back of that experience.
Yeah, I mean, we have lots of examples at J&J where we were able to bring together the best of sales, marketing, and shopper. One of my favourite ones was the bedtime, Johnson's Baby bedtime launch. I came in after the initial launch. I was the bedtime bath had already launched, and that was doing well. And there was a lovely, rich area of consumer insight around, obviously, please let my baby sleep. You know, that whole rich territory that a lot of parents can empathise with, particularly in those early, you know, months and
both for my baby's sake and for my own sake.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly, and for the health of my relationship and everything.
Yeah,
really, it's physical, it's mental, everything. So bedtime bath had started to tap into that, but obviously, what was quickly apparent was we hadn't really built a family of products. You know, what Shopper and Customer were a lot about was trying to create not just a story within a SKU, but to create something at shelf that told a story that had a presence, etc. There was obviously a commercial side to that. There was a shopper insights around, you know, cross-selling and consumer needs around routines and genuinely helping parents through those routines. So, you know, that collaboration, and I think for me it was the best and always easiest way to do it was around NPD, because there's incremental stuff to go after, and you can excite the retailers in it, you can excite, you know, internal stakeholders, because you're talking about we are going to sell more. So obviously you need to tie that now in a world of sustainability and think, okay, are you sure you want to just drive consumption? So I think there is an element where we do need to have an existential think around, is it just about consumption, or are there ways that we can make things more circular in design, that we can advance the sustainability agenda as well? But to your point about cross-functionality, innovation is the best, because then you've got a common objective, you've got a common commercial agenda, etc., and you're learning from each other, you're all singing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can testify that some of the best customer meetings, workshops, top-to-top meetings were on the back of something that was really driven by innovation, incrementality and need state. But I think you're absolutely right. That additional conversation, which is inevitably happening now and will continue to, that's great, but how do we weave it into the circular economy, or how do we ensure that we're doing the right thing from a scope 3 perspective? So I can absolutely testify that that's definitely an additional one for everyone to be thinking about.
Yeah.
And I think some of those meetings, you know, I can really look back on very, very fondly and take those learnings forward. So I was definitely involved with you at a time in a pretty pivotal point in my career. So it's quite a fond memory that you've brought back there.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun in it, because you're relying on each other. You know, there's a moment where marketing might be leading conversation. You'll be a moment where shopper is, a moment of sales is. So you're codependent, which is actually if you were to define the success of marketing and sales, it's a codependent relationship.
Absolutely, yeah.
So two sides of the same coin. So that is the best way to look at it. The other thing I'd say about sustainability is that it can, not always, but it can lead to moments of commercial opportunity, because it's a moment of change, where consumer behavior, and whenever consumer behavior changes, there's a commercial opportunity. Number one. Number two is it can elevate the conversation. You know, so you're not just talking about numbers. You can if so that, which can get into you know, I want X, you want Y. What's the middle ground? Well, having a third dimension, which is there is a bigger picture here that we can all buy into, can help the conversation. So sometimes sustainability can be seen as it's a cost or it's a distraction. But if you see it as, well, actually, no, it's a consumer moment of change, or it's a change in the world, which offers opportunities. Rental models versus buying being an obvious one, right? So how can we rent stuff versus buying stuff? Just one of many. Secondly is it can be a point of difference and a different conversation that you might otherwise have. Yeah, and ultimately, being slightly mercenary, it will drive the long-term shareholder value for both sides, because inevitably those agendas have to be met and those obligations met. So if you know it's coming, why not be the lead? Why not be the first to get there? First mover advantage. Yeah, absolutely. So one last question from me in terms of your big hope for the sustainability agenda over the next 5 years. What do you think about a lot and hope accelerates and improves over the next 5 years? So because my category doesn't speak sustainability well, what I hope for is actually rooted in consumer behavior, to make it easier and more compelling for people to come on the journey. I think sustainability still to this day can be dry. It can leave people feeling hopeless. what can I do? I'm just one person, or hypocritical, like, I still want to go on holiday to Spain, or I do go on holiday to Spain, so I might as well, so nothing matters then, so it's full of these tripwires of I can't do anything, or it's too bleak to think about, etc. So what my hope is, let's make it empowering, let's make it positive, let's find the messaging and the propositions that actually make this easier, or let's say easier, and more optimistic and collaborative. So, LCAs, life cycle assessments, they should be easy. I've been quoted 20 grand, to do LCAs. It's just madness. We should make it, there should be more transparency, more robustness, more simplicity.
Standardization.
To say, okay, this is X for the environment, and this is Y, and so people can understand, right? So is, for example, moving from a shower gel in a polypropylene case, is it better to swap that with a pouch? Now, maybe it is, because a pouch is a refill, right? And you can put more in it, blah, blah, blah. But maybe it isn't, because is that pouch, is it made of lots of laminates, and does it end up in landfill? Whereas that polypropylene, case, that you can just rinse that out and put it into the recycle. So we need to have LCAs that are super simple, super easy, and then we need to get the messaging that's positive, that's upbeat. That's why ReBorn is what it is. I mean, I've had people tell me it looks like a bit like a baby brand, with that like pregnant woman in the B, and obviously the associations are born with baby, and I'm fine with that. It's in a world of kind of quite heavy, serious corporate messaging, be that environment or homewares as a category, I just want to bring joy. Let's spread a bit of joy in the world and make sustainability accessible, easy for consumers, joyful. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think making it joyful, removing tripwires, is a great place to end. So thank you so much, Brian, for your time. It's been absolutely brilliant seeing you. Thank you for hosting us, and thank you for bringing the sun out at the end of our conversation.
Just
come out.
All right, thanks.
Thanks ever so much.
Yeah, cheers.
Thank you.